Today's episode is sponsored by 460 Nature Reserve, a brand with a purpose. If clothes were fruit, 460 would be in the organic section. It's nutrition, not just food.
That's because you said you've never done anything like that in Cameroon.
I think that coming from here and you see all the nice things on TV, right? Then you get to a place like the UK where all these things are accessible, right? But you can access them because what? Because she's a foreigner.
The little girl was killed, right?
Yeah, she died on the spot.
Mm. You definitely manipulated the system.
I wouldn't say manipulated. I just
And people.
I just say I took advantage of the system.
And people.
It's a difference of being shanked, like you see in American prisons, and watch somebody get beaten on the head for something that simple.
Hey guys, Charlie here, LITC Podcast, LITC Media. We've got another podcast coming up. What I need from you guys, I really need from you guys, is to like, subscribe. Like, subscribe. I think there should be some sort of thing coming up here telling you to like and subscribe. But if you can do that, it will really help us grow our following along our journey.
Here we are, LITC Podcast. It's a special podcast. We're here with, I don't even know what to call you. You've got so many different names, but we'll stick with Gilbert Sopo, the infamous. All right, we're here in Cameroon, Douala to be precise. That's the quarter that we're in. It's, mate, to say the least, I can hear. I think there's a wedding going on downstairs, so there's a big ceremony going downstairs, so you might hear it throughout the podcast, but apologies for that. But the way we like to start with our podcast is by looking at a piece of art. And I think this is very befitting, but yeah. So this is the artwork that we've got. Just literally, we like to ask whoever we're interviewing, what do you think about it?
Actually, it's an apt description of the neighborhood in which we are in. You see a couple of longboats. If you look out on the window, you see a couple of those outside. It's just a reflection of people that live by the water. You have the old saying, you live by the land, by the fruits of the land. These folks live by the fruits of the water. So they go fishing. Most of the sand that comes out of the building around the area is from them. But this describes, the old culture.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay, and in terms of when you look at this picture, what feelings come to mind? Like emotions, feelings?
Sour home.
Sour home.
We are.
It's our home.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sour is literally describes the region in which we are in.
Okay.
And I was born in this region, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So feelings of home.
Feelings of home.
Okay, nice. All right, cool. So without further ado, this is about you, and we want to know about. We like to go back from the beginning, so we want to know about how you grew up, family life, siblings, where you grew up, and basically the point that you get to where you are now.
Right.
So yeah, take it away.
I was born in this town.
Yeah, and this town, Douala.
I was born in Douala.
It's hot. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of traffic going around there. Just in case you haven't been to Douala, Cameroon, it's busy.
It's the economic capital of Cameroon. What? Because the two most important things in the African culture is sharing a meal and what you believe in. That's those are the things. That's where you actually get your morality from. The closer your family is, the easier it is for you to pick up from what your parents, how your parents grew up, your parents' your uncles, your aunties, and stuff like that. Table is where you share your day-to-day experiences. Your papa always gets to ask you, hey, what happened to you? That cut in your hand. It wasn't there in the morning. How come you got a cut in your hand?
Yeah. Where's that T-shirt from?
I haven't taken that from.
Yeah.
Did I buy those?
Yeah.
So sharing a meal, and most probably sharing 2 meals a day. Lunch and dinner.
Not breakfast. Not
breakfast because in the morning everybody's trying to get out of the house. And when we grew up, school started about 7 a.m. in the morning, so that's people getting ready to get in showered, 3, 4 kids, everybody's trying to get out. Now, when I was growing up, my parents were civil servants. They worked for the government. They used to have a two shift thing going on, they work from 7:30 to about 12:30, come home for lunch, then go back at say 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, then come back home at 6 o'clock. Which made it quite impressive. So every lunch hour we went to school, English speaking, we went to school 7 o'clock, by 1 o'clock we were back home. So we actually were always home for lunch hour.
Okay.
What the government used to call back then siesta hour. When the sun's really hot up, so didn't want nobody going to school at that point in time or anybody being at work. So they come back home, we have lunch together, they'll go back to work, they'll be back at home again before 7 for dinner.
Okay,
so it was a close-knit family,
Okay, and what was it like schooling? What was it like? I want to give me a picture or paint a picture for people that don't know the world, don't know what it's like to go to school here, have a perception possibly of what they may deem Africa to be like. Paint a picture of what it was like for you.
Going to school back then, and your teachers were entrusted. Teachers and parents spoke. I can't tell you
how they had a relationship.
Yes, they had a relationship. I can't tell you how many times my teacher woke me, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, put a beat into me.
Yeah. So what was your naughty kid then?
No, maybe not for not doing my assignments correctly or stuff like that. And then when I come back home, he'll come to the house and tell my parents, maybe I'm not doing so well in school when I should be doing so well in school. And I get beaten again at home, man.
Yeah. So what was that? Because this is a really good point, because obviously our viewers are generally from the UK and whatnot, and that system, it's not in the UK anymore. It used to be once upon a time. What do you think about that? Like kids being beaten by teachers at school or disciplined, as it were?
Without pushing it too far, I believe education begins at home. Parents have a greater part of educating the children. The teacher only comes in to further the education that the parents have given to their children at home. Back when I was growing up, I don't think I ever had a teacher that I could pinpoint and say, this man or woman, beat me so bad that it left a scar in my memory. I don't have that type of, so I come from that old school.
Yeah.
I come from that old school where parents and teacher work hand in hand, and the parent can tell the child, listen, you can go as far as this, but don't cross this line.
Yeah.
And the teacher will respect that, because, the teacher's children were my friends, and they used to come to our houses and play. So, you don't expect your friend's dad to be putting it too hard on you. He lived at your parents. You come tell your parents to do that.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So what was it like? Was it a lot of fun growing up in Kabbalah?
It was fun. So it was fun.
Memories of fun. Give me an example of something. I don't know what would be fun. I know it's hard because you're thinking about when you was a kid.
Yeah.
I just want people to really understand the climate.
Me personal experience, I only got into sports when I got into like secondary school and high school. So a lot of times, growing up in primary school, I used to spend a lot of time reading. When my friends would be playing soccer games and stuff like that, I'm reading books, man. I'm reading Tom Sawyer's, Tale of Two Cities, stuff like that. Because my mom imprinted on us the importance of reading. My mom used to say, an educated person, you cannot compare with somebody that's gone to school. And somebody that's gone to school cannot compare with somebody that has traveled. And if you haven't traveled, the next best thing to do is to travel in books.
Yeah,
see the world from people's eyes that have traveled, And so I used to read a lot of books.
Yeah, and what would you say, that's nice, because it leads me into my next question. What would you say your 3 or 2 favorite books are?
The Bible.
Okay, so the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about the God or the religious part of it. It was just reading and seeing what other cultures were like. Reading from a historic point of view, reading from a story point of view, Because as a kid growing up, there is no way you can understand the theological side of the Bible, especially if you're given the kids' Bible to read. You're given it to familiarize yourself with stories, and get some morality into you, but, why you shouldn't steal, why you shouldn't do, things that you shouldn't do, most of that. So,
okay, all right, cool. Do you have any favorite quotes?
My people die for lack of knowledge.
My people die from lack of knowledge. Who's that quote from?
That's from the book of Hosea, I believe. It's in that.
Yeah, and
Joshua.
So expand on that a little bit.
Expand on that.
Why that means that so much to you?
Because you can't talk about something if you don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it deals with ignorance.
Do you think a lot of people do that?
Yes, I think a lot of people, especially in today's world, even though we have the internet, we have Google, and we have all this accessible information within our reach, which is a very good thing. But people still choose to be ignorant. Coming from the society in which you come from, you have racism. Why? Why would somebody decide to be racist towards you when tomorrow they could be in the hospital sick and it could be your kidney that saves them and they won't even know?
Mm-hmm.
We act terribly towards other human beings out of ignorance and for fear of the things we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So knowledge is power. And if you don't have knowledge, guess what? He who has knowledge will rule over you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times in this day and age, and I can definitely say for myself and some of my peers, I might hear something from let's say Demas.
Yeah.
And Demas is telling me about, I don't know, an ancient society, and it sounds really good to me. I'm like, oh, Demas is quite knowledgeable. And then the next minute, I'm having a conversation with Alfie, and I'm saying what Demas told me, but I'm talking like it's a fact.
Yeah.
Without actually going to do the research, verify that is correct.
That is correct.
So now I'm using that, and it gets passed on, and I feel that happens a lot in this day and age. Do you know what I mean? So yes, I continue. So going through school, secondary school. What did you want to be like when you were growing up? What was it? What was the dream?
What was my dream? Playing with airplanes, wanted to become a pilot. Playing with race cars, wanted to become a Formula One driver, a race car driver. Having a godfather, having a medical surgeon for a godfather. Going around the hospitals and think maybe one day I'll become a doctor. Going to the seminary and thinking I wanted to become a priest.
Just whatever you was involved in, you wanted to be.
Whatever I was involved in, I wanted to be. My parents, especially my mom used to say, don't limit your sphere. You can be wherever you choose to be. God has blessed you. As long as you enjoy what you are doing, you should be happy in it.
Okay, so ambitions to be a pilot, to be a priest and whatnot. So where does this lead you? So you're at high school, what are the dreams?
After the GC ordinary levels, I went back to high school section of the center. And I had a little fallout with the principal, or the rector, as you call him, of blessed memory he is. He suggested I do some certain subjects, which I didn't want.
Mm.
So,
he
wanted me to do history, economics, and French. I wanted to do biology, chemistry, and mathematics. So we had
And you was 15? And was you allowed to make that decision at that age? Did your parents allowed you to just say, okay, would you say you was quite a hard-headed young man or?
No. Most kids at that age make that decision.
Okay.
Either through a school counselor or by the subjects you passed, you were successful in ordinary levels.
Okay. So you decided that you weren't going to become a priest anymore. So
I moved on to high school, moved from Boyer, because I went to secondary school in Boyer. I moved from Boyer, I went to Bamenda for high school. 2 years there.
So, okay, because obviously I've been here, so I've learned a little bit of the history.
Yeah.
You said you moved from Boyer. Is that the Because there's different sides of Cameroon, right? Is that the British side, as it were?
Yes, that is
Okay.
actually, so Douala is part of the French-speaking zone of Cameroon.
Yeah.
So when I was born here, went to primary school here. After that, I went to boarding school in Boya, which is part of the one of two Anglophone zones. Okay, so Southwest, Boya
Yeah.
Southwest
Yeah.
used to be the capital of British Cameroon.
Okay.
Okay, so I went to school over there for secondary school. Then for high school, I moved now over to the other English-speaking zone, which is the Northwest.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
And like for people that don't really know, what is that? This whole French side, British side, and apparently, well, not apparently, there's conflict going on right now because of this, right?
yes, there is. There is because we're both under British. One side of Cameroon, it was after the First World War. They were given atrocities to the British, first German colony.
So they were originally under Germany.
After Germany lost the First World War,
So it was
their territory.
divided up.
It was divided up. It was given, under Britain and France.
So the British side took one side and the French side took another side. Okay.
In 1961, they did a federation thing.
Wasn't even a possibility of Cameroon was going to possibly go, the British side was possibly going to go under Nigeria because it borders Nigeria.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, when the British were going to leave, they did not give the English side the option of independence. It was either join Nigeria or join French Cameroon. So we decided to join, plebiscite 1961, we decided to join French Cameroon as a federation. But sometime, maybe 10 years or 12 years after that, we got assimilated. So if you look at the original constitution of Cameroon, it's still a two-state federation. So we've been living as an assimilated people.
Does it seem like that?
Yes, it does. It does. Now, for people like me, fluent in French, grew up in the Francophone zone, and having the type of name I have, it's easier to just mingle between the folks. I should also tell you something. I don't, which is not, I'm not proud of this. Okay, I don't speak any of the native languages in Cameroon. And that was done by design by my parents.
That's really strange. Not strange. The reason I say that is to say this. I remember me and Demas were out the other day and we were just having some food. And I looked and I saw these two gentlemen and they were speaking French. And I literally said to Demas, this is crazy, like, in terms of colonialism, just the fact that you've got these two African men just speaking French.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, how does this work? Like, in terms of it, this happens in England, right? It's in England. Like, I'm African descent and whatnot. I speak English. But to actually see it in Cameroon, where it's because they've been under rule and they're just happy speaking French. I was just like, I don't know, it just done something to me that just made me feel, and especially obviously I've been up and down, I've been seeing how it is.
Yeah.
But it just done something to me that just made me feel a certain type of way. But that's just me going somewhere else with this. Well, yeah.
I think my parents' idea, and I don't hold it against them. I don't hold it against them, but I wish that at some point they would have let us, kind of like either pick up on either my father's side of tongue or my mother's tongue. But it was to avoid the ability to be pinpointed as a Francophone or an Anglophone. Which means if I ever had to walk into an office and look for a job, if I was fluent in both English and French, nobody could actually tell if I was from English-speaking Cameroon, if I was from French-speaking Cameroon.
Makes sense, I get it.
Because what you tend to find out when you speak the tribal language, when you got tribal tongue. Like for example, if you have Indian friends Indian from with an Indian background, if they speak, what would you say is a prominent Indian language? Punjabi.
Yeah.
You tend to find that mixes in with the English they use.
Okay, yeah.
And you can easily identify them as being of that. Even just from hearing it, you can say, okay, no, this person is from Indian descent. So my parents were trying to avoid that with us, to be able to, people be able to map and say this person is from and this person is from. I don't know the reason behind that, but I know that was.
And would you say, for people that don't know, that the conflict is quite rife that's going on between the different sides?
It is.
Because you explain a little bit about because I think we touched on it, about what the conflict is and what's happening right now.
To be honest with you, my belief, because I wasn't here when the conflict started. My belief is that the Anglophones have just gotten tired of being so marginalized.
So the British side of being tired?
Yeah, tired of being marginalized by the French side, because we have the English side of Cameroon has a whole different way of doing things. Completely different. We like law, we like order, we like cleanliness.
Yeah.
You understand? But when you come to the French speaking side, there's none of that, man.
Yeah. Well, not to I'm sure there is, but not to the.
There is none of that.
Okay, cool.
There is none. Yeah. There is none. From the little child on the street that talks to you. The thing is, they've been expanding over the years their power into the English-speaking zone. And I think where it all got set off was the fact that they started expecting, they were now bringing judges, magistrates into English-speaking courtrooms that knew nothing about the common law, because we use the common law over on that side. They use, what do they call on this side? They use, we use common law, they use civil law. So they were now bringing magistrates. How can you bring a magistrate that knows nothing about common law to come arbitrate people that are under common law? And he's using civil law. Civil law principles, it doesn't make any sense.
Not true.
And they were bringing French-speaking teachers to come teach in English-speaking schools, teachers that have never been trained in the English way of life. So it made no sense. It made no sense. And I'll give you an example. The governor of Bamenda is neither from the southwest or the northwest.
Okay.
So how do you?
He's not in touch with that culture.
How do you do that? How do you rule people without knowing their culture, without knowing where they're coming from?
But then, from what you're saying, well, I understand what you're saying, but to give our suppose the viewers some idea, it's really escalated though, right? In terms of even when we was here, there was I'm sure there was an incident where a little girl
got shot.
Yeah.
By a gendarme officer. Can't tell you what happened.
Yeah, of course, we're going into that part.
But that was how do you shoot into a car with kids inside?
The little girl was killed, right?
Yeah, she died on the spot.
So there's a lot of conflict going on at the moment.
There is.
So in terms of you growing up and whatnot, and your dreams and aspirations, being educated in the French side, then going back to the English side, tell me a little bit more about your journey and where it led you to in terms of how you progressed on.
After I left high school, I went to England. Yeah. I went to England. I was in Southampton.
So you finished your schooling.
Finished school, yeah.
Decided to go to uni in England.
Yeah. Went to Southampton Institute.
What was you studying?
Business information technology.
Yeah, sounds about right for you.
Business information technology.
How was it like in terms of the culture coming over from Cameroon? Was that the first time you travelled outside of Cameroon?
Not out of Cameroon. The first time I've been to Europe.
Okay, so how was that going to Europe? Cold.
It was cold. It was wet. very wet. But I was fortunate because the English weather is similar to the weather at the time in Buea.
Yeah, okay.
And Buea, you have it's constantly gloomy.
Yeah.
So England is constantly gloomy.
Yeah.
Not very much sun.
Yeah. And what was it like being away from your parents? Was it something you took in your stride, being away from your siblings? How was that?
I've been in boarding school.
So, yeah.
So being in boarding school 9 months of the year,
Yeah.
when you go away to a foreign country, you really don't feel it.
And how was boarding school?
Oh man, fantastic. I know different parts of the world have different images of boarding school. But over here, going to boarding school when I was growing up was for the affluent kids because it cost more money.
Yeah.
And I went to a Catholic boarding school. And not just that, I went to a seminary.
So for you, it was you being away from your parents was nothing new.
No.
So you went to the UK. You were in Southampton. You said
Southampton.
But how was that? How was that? Was it a culture shock? How was that being in a new place?
Growing up in Douala also helped. Because
Coming from the English side
Yes.
and then different culture completely.
different culture and all that, and then most people, the culture shock gets to be with the interactions with different skin colors. So you go from all this, brown skin. Now you find yourself in the majority of white skinned people.
How was that for you?
I lived in Bonaprison. There's a lot of white people in Bonaprison.
But not as much as Europe. There's no way. Like, I've been there. Like it's not the same as Europe.
Back then,
Yeah.
and a lot of people that my mom used to work with were white. So I had no issues interacting with white folks. You have no problem with my accent though. So
Yeah.
it was still apparently it was too heavy when I got there.
So did you feel that you had to code switch? That you had to assimilate and change the way you speak to suit others?
You have no obligation to understand. So it's on you to make sure you can get your point across. And if getting your point across means you have to talk like them so that they can better understand what you're saying, then you do.
Was that easy for you to do?
That was easy for me. For one, Southampton wasn't that bad. When I made some trips to London, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting was that having a conversation with people from Scotland was actually easier.
Serious?
Yes.
I don't find that easy.
You
I'm
see,
born
yeah,
in England.
there you go.
Yeah.
For me, having a conversation with people from Scotland or some parts of Ireland was actually very easy for me than sometimes actually understanding people from England themselves.
Yeah.
Which was crazy, but I could never explain that. What I found hard in terms of communication was the fact that in Africa, in Cameroon, as you've noticed, in most black cultures, we tend to use our hands as a sign of expression when we're talking. Most white folks who found out threatening, like you're getting into my space when you're talking to me, I found that a little bit off-putting.
Yeah.
Like to me, I was like, I'm just trying to express myself.
Just expressing yourself.
I'm not angry. I'm not mad at you. I'm just trying to express myself. But you tell me, hey man, stay there. This is my space. Don't come too close. So I found that a little off-putting.
Yeah. And what would you say is some of the biggest challenges you faced while being abroad when you was in the UK?
When I was in the UK, couldn't move around like some of the European kids. So if you had excursions in school, couldn't go because of visa restrictions. Couldn't work certain amount of hours. If you wanted to work, you were restricted to a certain amount of hours to work. So it's a whole lot of restrictions on international students back then. That
How was that for you, and how did that make you feel?
they were taking the mickey. Like seriously.
Like a violation, like you're here studying,
Yeah.
you possibly want to go on a field trip to France and whatnot, and you can't do any of those things, so you're not getting your full education.
Yeah.
When you say they were taking the mickey, did it make you feel, was there any resentfulness? Was there anything that made you want to take the mickey back?
No.
No?
Nah. Because again, like my mother used to say, if you're in somebody's land, you play by your rules. or learn to play by their rules, or learn the system enough if you want to check it. Play by the rules.
So would you say you played by the rules when you was in the UK?
Nah. That's why I got deported. I got deported once.
Got deported?
Yeah, I got deported.
So okay, cool. Let's get so you're at uni, you're studying. What did you say you were studying?
BIT.
Okay. So how are you getting money? How are you surviving when you're studying? Oh yeah, so when you're studying, what are you doing like to get money?
Yes. Can I click the feed on that one? Can I click the feed on that? Some of the things I'm going to tell you, some of the institutions that I will tell you about will most probably negate it. I had a friend in uni, a Jamaican actually, British Roman boy, and that was the first time, to actually thought something like this was possible. This friend of ours had a bank account at Midland Bank. Okay? But for some reason, Midland had made a mistake. And there was a company that had almost the same account number, but the last number changes. So I don't know whoever was inputting the account number, inputted my friend's account into it. So my friend was getting over 300 grand a day in his account.
300,000.
300,000 pounds a day. Legitimate though. Back then, the British law used to say that whatever money hits your account is yours. As long as you didn't get it through illegal forms, whatever hits your account, if you used it, no legal actions could be taken against you. So he paid off his parents' houses in London, paid for trips, had his girlfriend at uni do a dope job. They went to Ibiza, then they went to Cancun, and this got me thinking. If the bank could do such a thing as a fluke, could it be done? So I started hanging out a lot more with Nigerians, the Arabs, just looking at the possibilities of different things. Went to jail a couple of times.
Went to jail?
Yeah. As well. Credit card fraud, as part of the learning curve, like they told me, can't keep working with people with your hands are clean. So,
what made you decide to start doing fraud, basically?
It wasn't what made me decide to start doing fraud. I fell on a system at Barclays Bank. Okay. Back then, Barclays Bank had a system where you could use any debit card to load up a credit card. So I could take that debit card as long as I had the numbers and expiration date and the security code. I could load up my credit card with it. Didn't have to have any links like they do today. Credit card and debit card have to be linked. It was after that they started linking. But by then I think through a Lloyd's Bank always been tight, man. They're already linking their stuff up. If you're checking, like if your current account and your credit card were not the same person, you weren't doing any money movement, in Lloyd's Bank. But Barclays, back then, for wanting to control the majority share of the banking population, allowed some leeways. And I also discovered that even if your credit limit was £100, you could still overpay even 100,000 into your credit card, and nobody would twitch you. You wake up the following day, you go to the road exchange, show up your ID, answer the password, they give you your money.
So what, did you used to get IDs made up?
No. That wasn't part of it. I actually got proper false. And I explained to them what was happening.
Okay.
See, listen, this is what is happening. This is how it's going to work out.
And how did you get those people?
mates from school and stuff like that.
But was it a certain type of people? And what I mean by that is, were they vulnerable people? Were they people that are desperate and you could...
No. Working with desperate people is never a good thing.
No?
No. You do not work with desperate people.
Yeah.
Especially if you're getting into a lot of money situation. If you work with desperate people, they're liable to run away with your money.
Yeah.
So you work with people that understand the possible consequences of their action and are willing to take that risk because they see the benefit to it. But there's also a possibility of total deniability. So there was always that. And most of the people I work with got off with that whole fact of total deniability.
So when it came back on them, because I know a lot of times they'll say, oh, yeah, you can do this, you can get this money, it'll be fine. But there's a time when it does come back on them, more than likely. And when it came back on them, was there any instances where, I don't know, someone you got to do it, they ended up going to prison for it, they ended up going to jail?
No, they just pointed the fingers back at me.
Yeah, okay.
They pointed their fingers back at me. That was basically the deal. If he ever comes back, you just turn around and point your finger back at me.
Yeah.
That's how I got deported the first time from England.
Okay. You say the first time, what, did you get deported twice from England?
No, actually.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So, yeah, we're going to go into that. So, what sort of figures were you making when you were doing all of this?
I just started. And by some fluke of nature, man, when I actually discovered that I could do on each card £10,000. I did it the first day, the second day, and I was coming back from Bournemouth on the third day, man, on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And I stopped at the gas station to get some phone cards, to credit now, to be able to top up my phone to do online transaction. Back then I was using Virgin Mobile.
Yeah.
You know, had a data number, all of that set up on the laptop. So I could sit right down and do it. Police pulled up behind me, man.
Yeah.
Police pulled up behind me. And for the hell of me, I had 1,000,001 names I could have given them. You know, back then they never used to ask for IDs or anything. You had 7 days to go present your paperwork at the police station.
Yeah.
For the hell of me, Charlie, I don't know. I gave them my money.
And what did you get nicked there?
I got nicked right there and then.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
That wasn't the first time you'd been arrested though, was it the first time?
No.
Okay. It wasn't. What was that like at the time? So I'm trying to go back to this young man that's come over from Africa to study, and now you're doing criminal things, and then the first time you're getting arrested and whatnot. What was that like? Was there any fear there? What was the feelings?
That's strange now.
So what, did you not care about family back home?
I had education already, so really, it didn't.
No.
It didn't.
So you didn't think that, oh, well, my family going to find out about this? It was never that.
You see, with me, it's never been an issue of what other people would think. If you didn't help me pay for my tuition, if you weren't contributing to that, you had nothing to say to me.
And
You couldn't, not that you had nothing to say to me, but you couldn't judge my actions or my intentions. I'm not proud of what I did. You know, it was almost like I'd lost at one point in time I decided to take my consciousness, that Scenarian consciousness, and chuck it in the bin and say, I don't want to do this right now. Now I just want to be back.
what do you think made you like that?
Do you know what? For the hell of me, I've thought about that for years. Can't pinpoint any exact moment in my life that flipped me. I think it's just something that happened gradually.
And what do you get from that? Apart from the monetary gain, what do you get from that? Because there must be some sort of thrill or some sort of buzz when these things are going through. What are the feelings? What are the things that are actually happening to you? What do you gain from that makes you want to continue doing this? And I'm saying apart from the money.
Just the money.
Just the money.
At the time, it was just the money. This just happened to be something I picked up on because of my educational background. So it's something that was out there in the open. It's something that people use every day. It's something that people did every day. I didn't.
You didn't reinvent the wheel.
I didn't reinvent the wheel. I didn't change anything.
But you manipulated, right?
I wouldn't say manipulated.
I would. You definitely manipulated the system.
I wouldn't say manipulated. I just
And people.
I just said I took advantage of the system.
And people.
People, I offer the money. So
Yeah.
the agri got them, not me.
Yeah. You're the one putting that greed in. You're dangling the carrot. You're the one that's dangling. And I've been around you enough to know that you've got a sweet mouth. So the point I'm trying to make is there's no way, like, no, because I think when we're having these conversations, the more open you are with it, the more I'll understand and other people understand.
You know,
and it's craft.
The honest truth is, the joy I got from it all was, take for example, when I saw you spend money.
Seeing other people, yeah.
When I saw you spend the money.
Yeah.
What you did with the money. How crazy you went with the money.
Yeah.
You take a kid that is a minister, say maybe in Russia, and they have all this money they get every month, and suddenly they think they can make 10 grand a day. And it's like, let's go do it, man. And you just see how crazy they get.
And then you get a little satisfaction of seeing them get that crazy. So we got there. Yeah. So, all right, cool. So, today's episode is sponsored by 460 Nature Reserve, a brand with a purpose. If clothes were fruit, 460 would be in the organic section. It's nutrition, not just food. You said that you got deported.
Yeah.
You say you got deported at that time. You just made, 20 grand, and then you got deported. What was that like, coming back to the UK at that time? I mean, going back to Cameroon. What was that feeling like? What was the process of, you've been nicked, or you're in a deportation centre?
Mm-hmm.
How long was you in a deportation centre?
A couple of months.
What was that like?
Again, being in boarding school and all of that, that those feelings that people get of being afraid of the unknown. The thing about me is, if I walk in here and there's 4 people sitting, if I hit it off with one person, any fear or any anxiousness I might have goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a God-given trait or what, but I find myself being able to be comfortable
in the uncomfortable.
And I think that has really helped me a lot, over the years.
Because it's funny, me and Demas have spoken about this quite a few times about, with our podcast, we wanted to do podcasts with people that have been deported, because in terms of also, if something happens in the UK, and you'd probably be testament to that. Like, so people that have been in the UK, I've got friends that have been here from the age of 5 and literally have been deported under the act that they're foreign criminals.
Right.
Every crime they ever learned was in the UK, so it doesn't even make sense. It's not like someone coming at the age of 18, coming from Nigeria, coming from wherever, whatever country it is, and they've been doing fraud or they've been doing criminal activities, and then they come over to the UK and get deported for being a foreign criminal. We understand that. But a 5-year-old, every crime they ever learned was in the UK. So for me, it doesn't even make sense. So it's something that we were looking at, that we wanted to go into, like in terms of doing podcasts with people that have been deported from the UK. And obviously, you are the first. So what was that like in terms of, what are the conditions in the deportation centre? Is it okay? Is it not? Well, obviously it's not okay. But what was the whole process and the conditions like, and how was that making you feel at the time when you was going through that?
The very fact that I could admit to myself that what I was doing was wrong, I think is what has helped ease a lot of that. Which means I knew in the back of my head that, if I got nicked, there's a very high
possibility
Yeah.
that I'll get deported back to Cameroon. Okay. Now, I just so happened
to have been put in one of the really nice deportation centers, which would be the one beside the Capital History Airport. Back then was.
And how long ago was this? What year?
We are talking 2000.
Okay.
So it was nice, man.
So it was alright.
It was nice, you know. You had,
What, nice or it was okay?
listen, when I say it was nice, mind you, as we talk, you won't realize that. You know, it was nice. You know, it was nice. You had your own room. You had your ensuite. You had your cable TV. You know, you had buffets 3-4 times a day. So while you're sitting there waiting to get shipped out, you're eating while you're playing sports. You're doing whatever you need to do. That's my definition of nice.
Yeah, and it's relative, but we're talking in comparison to what we're going to talk about down the line. But let's by no means say it's nice to be in a deportation center.
No.
We're not talking about relative. We're talking about in comparison.
When I say nice, okay. When I say nice, okay. Obviously, there are people that you meet in deportation centers that are fighting to stay. There are people who have been ripped away from everything and anything they've ever known. You know, that's not nice. That is not. You know. So when I say it was nice, it's more like, you know.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But going back to something you said, I was never a criminal before I left Cameroon. I never stolen. Actually, the only thing I ever stole from my dad, which I didn't, sit in the car, friend of mine, going to school, right? My friend picked up, you've seen the 500 coin, right?
Yeah.
My friend picked up a 500 coin. I saw it, didn't say nothing about it. I got whooped.
Yeah.
I got double whooped by my dad. Just for seeing that and letting that happen and not saying anything. So in reality, relatively speaking, I've never done anything of a criminal nature.
So what do you think the UK, what do you think that you've been in the UK actually made you start doing those things? That's because you said you've never done anything like that in Cameroon.
I think that coming from here and you see all the nice things on TV, right? Then you get to a place like the UK where all these things are accessible, right? But you can access them because what? Because you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
But you paying millions of pounds in tuition fees. Yet they are telling you you can access any of these things. And you see your fellow students, fellow mates, English, not paying no tuition fees, yet they're capable of driving in all these nice cars because they are English. So you ask yourself, what's the advantage of it then?
And that's what earlier when you said you felt like they were taking the mickey.
Yeah.
That's why I said, did you ever take the mickey back?
You know,
because what you're saying now is that all of this thing's accessible, but because of who I am or where I'm from, you're limiting what I can do. So how do I balance the odds? Yeah.
So that would explain why a lot of foreigners, okay, and that is most probably the mentality of a lot of fraudsters that maybe travel to go defraud people in Western countries and stuff like that.
Would you say you're a fraudster?
No.
Would you say you've been a fraudster? Would that be your title?
No.
What would be your title? If you had to define yourself in the criminal fraternity, what would be your title?
If I had to define myself in the criminal fraternity, I would just say I'm an opportunist.
Yeah.
So I don't go breaking systems or recreating systems or finding back holes into systems. No. I look at how Charlie wakes up in the morning, puts on his pairs of shoes. Now, does Charlie do anything different? Or that process of Charlie putting on his pair of shoes or putting on both pair of shoes, right? Does it allow me somehow to tie the two laces of Charlie's feet? which she normally does, and benefit from that.
So okay, so you're back. You're back in Cameroon. You've been deported. What's the plan? What's the feelings? How you feeling at the time? Taking it in your stride. What's the plan from there?
I'm taking this stride. I'm just looking, laughing.
Have you got money at the time?
No, because most of the money I had to pick up, good friend of mine picked up, never sent me any back.
Yeah.
So the figure you've been deported, right? See, they ain't coming back. You know. Plus things will happen a year or so after that. A little black and pop up.
So you're back
Now I'm back.
under one of your aliases.
Under one of my aliases. And I'm going around looking for my friends. Where my money at?
Yeah.
That's my money. You were supposed to pick up this money. You're supposed to hold for me. You know? You all stop answering my phone calls. And the minute I got into Cameroon, I told you I was in Cameroon, you're blacklisting me. So where's my money? I did get a few bit back.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So maybe like 20 grand. I'm not going to call it 5 grand back. Which wasn't a lot, but it was enough to start up again. So I was thinking that very good part of 10 months. Then I left. It just wasn't the same.
Okay, was you still doing the same stuff?
Nah, it just wasn't the same. Just wasn't the same.
Okay.
It just wasn't the same.
And you left, and where did you go?
I came back home.
Yeah.
Came back home.
So what? So you've gone through the process. How long was the process for you to make your way over to America? So you've been in England for 10 months. Is that it's not the same anymore? Come back to Cameroon. Decided like, you know what? I'm gonna go to America. Gone through that process. How long did that take?
Well, I stayed in Cameroon for a while. How long
was a while?
4 months, 5 months.
Okay.
But when I decided that I wanted to move, it most probably took me a month.
Okay.
The whole process took me about a month.
And what was, so you went to America, right?
Yeah.
And what part?
I was in Seattle.
And what was that like?
New.
Very different to the UK.
Very different to the UK. Very different to the UK. People are different. They talk different. They eat differently.
Feel at home over there?
No.
No.
That is one thing I have to say. I don't think America was ever made for black.
So would you say you felt more at home in the UK?
I miss the UK even up to today.
Yeah.
I do. I don't miss America.
No.
I don't. And I spend more time in America than I did in the UK.
Okay.
Made more money in America than I did in the UK. But I do not miss America.
Mm.
I don't.
So go on, tell me about when you was in America. So you made your way to America, you're in Seattle. What are you doing? How are you surviving?
I regulated my status maybe a year from when I got in 2003. By 2004, I regulated my status. Opened up a couple of companies.
How do you just open up a couple of
In
companies?
America, it's easy.
What, do you need quite a bit of money to do that? Or?
No, you can register a company, yes.
Oh, so you registered a couple of companies?
Couple of companies.
For the purpose of?
Doing business.
What, business or fraud?
No, business.
Okay.
Business. Fraud came down the road, my brother.
Okay.
Fraud came down the road. Fraud was never in the initial plans. Fraud came down the road. Legitimate business. For a long time, I was known as a roastman of Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a roastman of Seattle.
Yeah, what was that doing? What?
Selling roses.
Yeah.
Selling roses in nightclubs, man. I was making quite a bit of money doing that.
Yeah. What made you just, it was just a hustle?
I met this, funny enough, I met this Black American. I don't call him African Americans, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I met this Black American. And he asked me, he said, he was trying to check my wife. My wife went to go throw the trash, right? And he saw her at the trash, at the bin place, and he tried to chat her up. And she's like, "Mommy." So that's how we got introduced.
So one day he says to me, come help.
Your wife, is she American?
No, she's
Cameroonian. But was you met her in America?
No, we left.
Oh, so you both went together?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He said to me, come help me at the club. There's this Mexican club I'm bouncing at. I said, bouncy, what's a bouncer? He asked me to come help him. So I went up there. Then this Asian lady walks in, like this little Chinese lady walks in with a rose bucket, man. And he's like, can you help her out take her around so that people don't steal the roses? She had about 20 roses in the bucket. So I said, how much for one? She said, $5. I took that bucket, and within 10 minutes, I had all those roses sold. I mean, $100 in less than 10 minutes. I said, my friend, I said, when we go back home tomorrow, you take me to where they sell roses. I said, that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
That's how I got into it.
And how much were you making good money from that?
Yeah. Working from 10 to 2, 10 to 3, I could easily pocket on average $300 a night.
Nice. Piece of money.
That's decent money.
Yeah, so you're doing that.
I'm doing that. Decided to do a master's degree. Since I hadn't been to school, but the fact that I was a business owner allowed them to take me into the master's degree program. After that, got a job again at a bank. It was hard. That's where all my troubles. Around all this money.
Yeah, good. Made you feel like I need some of this.
It made me feel like, I needed some of this. So, you start finding ways in which, now you're on the inside, right? So you start finding ways in which you can get rid of some of this money. And, but then I realized that people easily get caught. Don't play with Americans money, right? They protect your money more than anything. Alright? So it became a whole thing of doing insurance scams, insurance fraud. Yeah. So it went from bank fraud to doing insurance fraud. So even though I got charged with bank fraud in America, everything.
And how long was you doing this for?
From 2006, most probably about 2009.
Yeah, so about 3 years. And what sort of figures were you making?
Single deal could run you about 90 grand.
And how often would you be doing these sort of deals?
The whole point wasn't the small deals. That wasn't the whole point. The whole point was trying to build up to something big. And so everything that was being done was being reinvested into paying taxes, showing that the business was growing and doing exactly what we said it was doing. So that at the end of the day, if you do present your tax documents to a loan officer, you'll be able to get a big pay.
So you're saying if I pay tax for 200,000, let's say £300,000, that would clearly show that I'm earning over £1 million.
No. If you pay taxes, obviously you pay tax on net income, right? After all your deductions.
Yeah.
So if you pay taxes for say 400,000 pounds, it will show that you're making that over your gross is over £1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do it over a period of 3 years, who's going to question you? If they want to audit you, the tax office has the proper records. It has all the money you've paid, right? Even if you're sitting in your home, even if your home is your office, even if you have a home office. Mm-hmm. I think it was Al Capone that said this. Pay the taxman, and you can have everything you want to have. Because he didn't get done by the taxman, didn't he? Yeah. Always give the taxman his share.
like I said earlier, there's a wedding ceremony going on downstairs. I think that was a sound check. But yeah, so alright, cool. So you're saying that you're doing it for about 3 years. So you, on average, how much would you say you was making a week with this sort of thing?
On average, I could most probably say we're pulling in about 100, 150 grand a week.
Yeah. And what are you doing at the time? That's a lot of money. Like, so what are you doing with this money? Just living the fast life?
No, not really. There was that whole impression of living the fast life. You know, you go into certain circles, you know. But to be honest with you, I've never been there. I've never been the dude there. I can give you a good part, I can show you, I'm not easy to get bored.
So what, where did your money go?
Reinvested in, like I said, paying the tax man.
So you said they caught up with you? Yeah.
They caught up with me. I was actually vacationing in Cancun at the time. So now you get to understand my whole idea of, or my whole reason for saying the detention center, immigration detention center in England.
Yeah, Mexico.
Yeah. Because when you compare that to a jail in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
It's no joke. It's no joke. You know, I saw people get killed as over nothing.
So they caught up with you. So did you have any inclination that they were onto you at the time, or not at all?
Yes, because before I went to Mexico, I had a visit from the feds. And I did tell them I was going to Mexico vacation because I'd already planned the vacation. So I told them I was going to. And they said they gave me an okay. But then when you do read the newspaper clipping, it's like I ran to Mexico knowing that they were after me. But no.
So you've been arrested by the feds, and the feds are very different from is it state police?
I got arrested by Interpol.
Interpol?
Yes.
Well, okay, so you've been arrested by Interpol, and they put you in a Mexican prison?
Yeah.
And how long was you in there for?
I was there from September 2009 to April 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how long it took for the extradition process to go back to the States.
And like you said, so when you're in there, so is it like nothing else you've seen? Because I've seen some stuff on TV about Mexican prisons, and they look like, well, they look awful, to be honest.
Oh, they're awful.
Yeah.
They're awful, but they're also very good.
Good for what?
Depending on which one you happen to find yourself.
Yeah.
I happen to be at Reclusorio Veronese Norte. Okay, Northern Prison, Mexico City, or by the hills. Right? Sanitation-wise, sucks. But as far as movement, being able to carry on doing business, you know, you could. I met a few people in prison that made more money while working in prison than they could ever do while they're on the streets. They preferred being in prison because they could work and support their family than being on the street.
Well, because they might be in danger being in the streets.
No, because there was no work on the streets.
Yeah.
But in prison, they found work.
Yeah. And what would you say? What was a typical time like for you over there in terms of, was it mainly Americans that were in the prisons over there?
No, I was in the Mexican prison.
Okay, so how did you get by? We talked earlier about being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I was talking about language. So what was that like in terms of communication?
That was probably the most horrible thing I ever felt. That was the first time I found myself in a situation where I couldn't understand the language.
And what about race? Did race come into it or not really?
They're actually very fond of black people.
Yeah.
Especially Africans.
Yeah.
They do respect us. A lot.
And what makes you say that?
I had an encounter while on the streets of Mexico with a couple of guys that work for the cartels. Because I spoke English, and just coming from America, actually they could pick up on the accent. The way they treated me, the hostility towards me was unspeakable. But then when I finally confronted them as to why every time I met them they were so hostile towards my person, all they said to me was, "Gringo,
Vete a tu casa. Gringo, go back home. I said, whoa, hold on. Gringo, I'm not American. Pero usted sí viene de América. Yes, I came from America, but I'm not American. I'm a Cameroonian. I'm African. And if you were standing there, you saw the light that went up in their eye. The first person they called was Roger Mila.
Because they're like football, yes.
The second person they called was Omambi. Omambi played in Club America, which is one of the biggest football clubs in Mexico. And he's a Cameroonian. Kalusha Oboya, which was a very famous African player, played over there. So it just went from level of hostility to level of friendship. Like, come here, sit down. Let's drink up a little bit. So it was the same thing in prison.
So what was one of the worst days that you had in there?
One of the worst days I had in there was I was walking behind this gentleman. His wife had been to visit him. And I was talking with him. And he had a worker, because even in prison, other prisoners have workers that are other prisoners. He had a worker of his accompanying his wife. And we went past this guy that was on the phone. And literally this guy stopped and ogled the backside now. The woman in the backside, not knowing that the husband was behind him. I've never seen somebody being beaten. Senseless. He got beaten with a phone. Like smashed up in the head, bro. He died from head injuries. It's a difference of being shanked, like you see in American prisons, and watch somebody get beaten on the head for something that simple.
And you as a person, an individual, like you said, coming from Cameroon, you've never done any crime up until when you went to the UK, witnessing these things and seeing these things. How did it actually make you feel? Obviously, it's survival of the fittest, but what does that do to you as an individual?
You want to leave. I don't mean like get up and leave, because you cannot do that to the process over, but your survival instincts become even more. As in, if I have to survive this place, I have to learn the best way to do it, not to be in that position.
So you're in there, it's that survival instinct. You said you was in there for what, 10 months?
From September to April.
Okay, September to April.
About 7 months.
So about 7 months, and then you said they're extraditing you to America. At this time, are you speaking with your lawyers and they telling you, well, look, this is what you might be, once you're extradited, this is what you're going to be looking at? Or not? Do you know?
They lied.
Come on.
Generally, the way the extradition process works is it's almost like you go through the same judicial process in the country in which you caught up in. So take, for example, if say you are Charlie and you get picked up in Cameroon for a crime that was committed in England, they have to judge by Cameroonian standards. Is that crime a crime in Cameroon? And would it, entice more than a year in prison? Would you get more than a year in prison if you were sentenced in Cameroon? If the answer is yes, you will go back to the US, or to England, sorry. If the answer is no, Cameroon will set you free. Now, you cannot, once you're extradited back to the UK can no longer bring any more charges against you. And the only charge that you have to face in the UK once you go back is the one for which you were found extraditable in the first place. So in reality, I was found extraditable on one count. When I went back, I got charged with all 7 counts. Now, you remember my whole statement about my people, that's a lack of knowledge?
Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Keeps on coming back.
There you go. Yeah. It keeps on coming back. If you don't know Somebody's going to screw you, or the system's going to beat you up.
And what were you looking at?
Each count of bank fraud is equivalent of about 30 years. So you look at 7.
And what did you end up getting?
I ended up doing about 10. Or
10 years.
10 years.
10 years in American prison.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, man. What was that like? I don't even know.
What's in the Mexican prison, I'll say? Listen, this is where a lot of people will think I'm crazy. The facility in Mexico in which I was in, right? I could have drawn out my process. And my lawyer didn't tell me that. I could have drawn out my process because each day I did in the Mexican facility was counted against any time that could have been given to me in the US. I had more freedom in the Mexican prison. There's no freedom in American prison. It's all money. You lock down for 24 hours. Especially now they've created a whole system where foreigners, non-US citizens go to a whole different prison and US citizens go to a whole different prison. US citizens and foreign nationals don't mix anymore in American prisons. Even in the federal system, they don't mix.
So 10 years. So, man, I can't even think about that. Did you ever spend any time in the hole or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time in the hole.
What was that for? How comes? Obviously, you have to be doing something to be, like, you have to be charged, right? To be put in the hole.
No, you don't have to be charged to be put in a hole. If the prison facility, if the surgeon or the captain determines at some point in time that you are a disturbance to the facility in which he'll drop you in the hole.
And was you a disturbance to the facility?
Yeah, it was.
Why? What was happening that made you?
I started speaking out on the abuse in the system.
Is there a lot of abuse going on?
A lot of abuse by prison officials. Not giving us what was due us, and not providing us some of the stuff that they said they would provide, that was listed as being provided to prisoners. Again, I will say this. The fact that they separated the Americans, citizens, and the foreign ones and the foreigners into 2 separate prisons made it easier, and has made it easier for this, what you call non-governmental organizations like Corporations Corp of America, CCA, right, that run prison systems, are the highest prison owners in America, to do whatever they want to do. They take money from the government saying they're going to provide services which they never provide. So when you start talking about that and drawing attention to that, you become a nuisance and a disturbance to their system. You want to talk about fraud? There you go. It takes one to know one.
Yeah,
It takes one to be able. It takes one when you look at a system. If you look at a system and see the way it's organized, you can actually say that somebody is doing something that they ain't supposed to be doing, and somebody's making a lot of money from people suffering.
And so, when you're thinking about the prison, was it very segregated in terms of different groups? Like blacks with the blacks, Muslims. Was it like that? Like how we see in the UK, we see a lot of, I don't know, like you got like the white racist group, like the neo-Nazis together. Was it very much like that in terms of different groups and segregation?
Well, being that we are all foreigners, so you had the biggest groups in prison while I was there were the Hispanics. So you had the Mexicans, and they were split up in so many groups, man. You had the Norteños, you had the Sureños,
Latin Kings.
You had Latin Kings, which more Salvadorians. You had the Salvadoreños, you had MS-13s. Then you had the Christian group. Now the Christian group was the biggest of them all among the Latinos. Then you had the Cubans, and even the Cubans were split up into 2. You had the white-looking Cubans, and then you had the black-looking Cubans. Then you had the Dominicans. Then you had the Europeans. And then you had the Africans. Then than intellectual powers, man. It's just they just leave them Africans alone because all they do is sit down, play chess, play Scrabble games, talk about how much money they're going to make when they get out of here.
Yeah.
Once this time, it's amazing, man. People go and sit and talk about, other group of people sit and they talk about women, girls, and doing drugs. Africans don't do that in prison. They sit and they'll tell you, hey, listen, what plans do you have for when you get out of here?
Is that the group you were with?
I'm an African.
Yeah, so was you with that group? Because you seem like you're quite versatile, like you can go to different groups.
Listen, I used to, I'm in prison, I used to be an educationist. So I work with the education departments. So I used to mingle with all of the groups. Because obviously my class, I used to teach all of them. So when I get out, everybody is respectful of the fact that I am a teacher. I don't take a mickey, and I'm always trying to help you when you actually need help. So there is that.
So one thing that obviously I know, because I know you personally, one thing we didn't touch, or a thing that we haven't touched on is, did you have a child before you went into prison?
Yes.